Start us off, Carter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Now That is Pod Racing, your go to podcast for all things pod racing in a galaxy far, far away. Today, we got a lot of fun discussion topics for you today. There was an incredible race on Blip Blip Bloop Bloop. Um, Glup Shitro came in and won the race in the 11th hour. Was doing it for his teammate who tore his ACL, and by that I mean his entire pod racer exploded and he died. Great week all around. But actually, this is Carter and Kevin explain football. I almost said podcasting. Carter here.
And Kevin, Sebulba's number one biggest fan. It's a shame that he also was out this week in pod racing.
Yes,
I made a pod racing
No,
shirt,
no,
fun
you
fact. It's
really?
yeah,
Oh yeah, you did.
there's a pod racing shirt on the soon to be revitalized Caspod merch spot.
Ooh, I did not know that. This was not a planned tie-in. Um, but no, he survives. He survives. Yeah, because you see him like rah, rah, rah. But anyway, so
Also, I'm still Kevin. I
this
don't know if I actually said my own name.
no, you did. You did.
Okay.
You're fine. Um, Here we are, week 5 in the books, already heading into week 6. The season is quickly drifting away, like some kind of metaphor for a time period where things quickly age and, like, time passes quickly as things end. Like summer, spring, winter. Is there any metaphor like that? I'm trying to think.
The golden age is over. Welcome to the Renaissance.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Awesome. We can use that. Shall we kick it off with some highlights from this week?
Can we use that? Is that worth it?
Sure, why not?
All right. I respect it.
We're not on the gold standard anymore. Everything's been downhill since.
Yeah. So I would say probably the biggest set of news coming out of week 5. The Bears finally won.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bears almost. They didn't end up going a full calendar year without winning a football game, but they were pretty close. I believe the key stat everyone was bringing up is they were the last professional sports team to win a game since Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Yes, I do remember
Um,
that stat, seeing that stat too.
yes.
Which hilarious stat.
Yes, that's a. I hate that that's a measuring stick we could have used. But the national nightmare is over just when everyone was ready to throw out Jalen Hurts. He had his best game as a professional player. I believe he ended up having 4 touchdowns. He looked poised. He looked confident. He took what the defense gave him, which is to say, for some reason, the Commanders were obsessed with running man-to-man coverage, even though they do not have the dogs for that kind of fight. And DJ Moore subsequently set them on fire.
I'm gonna cut real far ahead in this episode and go to the lows real quick. So low is Carter saying that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback for the Bears and not Justin Fields.
Oh my god, I that's embarrassing.
I
Sorry,
could have
I was
stopped
I
you.
I
You
was
could have
cooking an
added this.
eagle.
No,
No.
we're
I have an
recording.
Eagles take that I'm bubbling in my head and I'm
Oh
locking in.
dear
But
Lord.
yes, Justin Fields had his best day as a professional quarterback. Uh, which is to say, he just looked like a solid NFL quarterback. Like, I don't know. I guess, like, I don't want to get burned on, like, being like, he's back. I was right the whole time, only to get, like, smoked. I've really been trying not to do too much overreaction Monday with this podcast. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, he looked competent. For once, the Bears had a coaching plan. Again, taking advantage of the fact that for some reason, the Washington Commanders insist on playing a kind of defense they simply are not capable of playing. And meanwhile, Sam Howell continued to challenge how many hits a person can take before his limbs explode off like Lego blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I mean, I say that jokingly, but my God, man, you got to get rid of the ball.
Oh
Did you
yeah.
see that one play where it was third and like 6? He starts scrambling. He gets hit once, keeps going. Shoulder shot, like basically like clotheslines his own teammate and still a couple inches short. And instead of going for it, they kick the field goal. And I'm like, if he knew you were going to kick the field goal, he wouldn't have done that.
It's it's a mess. Like if you told I we talk about like if you told me at the beginning of the season a lot, which maybe we'll make maybe we'll make Callum and Tom rewatch this, and then they can fully count how many times I've said if you told me before the season or at the beginning of the season. Um, that's like
Mhm.
that's one of those reasons why we need an editor is for them to start a counter for how often I repeat myself. But if you told me at the beginning of the season that this game was going to be a blowout or just not a fun game to watch, I'd fully believe you.
Yeah, but I would have said the other way.
I would have probably said the other way too, but it's one of those like, oh, that's not what I was thinking. I'm not surprised, but that's not what I was thinking.
There was a brief moment where the Commanders looked like they were making a comeback when I literally think they did not run the ball once the entire second half. Um, Magic Johnson, share. I don't know how many shares he has. I know he's not like the primary owner. That's Josh Harris, the Sixers owner. But he's a pretty like he's one of like the faces of the group that bought the Commanders.
Yeah,
He was very angry about it on Twitter, and people were like, "Rah, rah, rah, um, yeah, the Commanders continue to be a team that does, the dark days are over, but there's no, like, the plan isn't in place yet. Like,
yeah.
they're still figuring out, are we making a new stadium? Are we changing the team name again? Uh,
What's the move?
do we get any sponsors back? And then we'll worry about making a competitive football team later.
Yeah, it's kind of a hot mess on ice with Washington. I mean, no one can deny they've been through a lot the last couple of seasons.
Mm.
It's pretty clear, but it's still like it's one of those times where I feel like I'm sure on a business level you can't be focused on um like you still have to worry about all these things during the season. But
Mm-hmm.
but I'm of the opinion just dial it back. Worry about what's happening week to week. Don't worry about like any of the other stuff. Just worry about week to week.
Mm-hmm. Um, On to our next topic. The New Orleans Saints simply mollywopped the New England Patriots. I
Whoa.
kind of wish we saved our discourse about the Patriots for this week because in my wildest dreams, I did not think they would have back-to-back worst losses in Coach Belichick's
Oh
history.
wait, no, this is I was that's we're we're talking about Bill and the Lows. Um
Oh yes, but
but
for the Saints, I will.
this
Oh
is the
yeah.
Saints talk. What?
Yes. Michael Thomas led his team in catches. How long has it been since we can say that? Since like
Way too long.
Michael Michael Thomas is truly like, everyone's getting a sports documentary this day. He might earn one cuz imagine shattering the single season catch record, being one of the most prolific wide receivers in football for like a 2 to how many years? I'm looking it up right now just because I don't remember how quickly it like came and went.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a 3 year period where he had 104, 125, 149. Then he had like a foot injury, and that was just it. He has not had 100 catches since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been quite a minute for him.
yes. The Saints, I feel like, because like I talked last week about this being my like, I'm not going to watch it game at all. But like
Right.
the Saints are very weird because Derek Carr is like he rivals Kirk Cousins for like the middest of mid quarterbacks, where you're like,
Yeah.
well, you're not bad, but like
He
you're.
he will sit on your bench the entire fantasy season and never
I'm,
start, but you like except for the one bye week that your main quarterback has.
and
That's
even then you'll go like, ugh, Derek Carr. When did I draft him? And then you'll skim through the waiver wire to see like, is there anyone else?
yes. Where's CJ Stroud? Where's Jordan Love?
Right. On top of that, his brother is David Carr, the first pick of the Houston Texans, who
Yep.
broke the single season sacked record in his first year and clearly was risk adverse, let's just put it going forward. And Alvin Kamara, who quietly had a suspension, who was supposed to be suspended like 2 years ago, but they kept pushing the trial date back.
Yeah.
And also, he found out in the offseason one of his legs weighed more than the other. So his entire sports training this year was about fixing that.
Yeah, which
Truly an insane team.
what it's a little bit of a messy team. Like you
I
said,
mean, yeah,
there's like, Michael Thomas who hasn't been amazing in quite some time. Alvin Kamara with one heavy leg, which what an insane thing to learn about yourself that you have one
right.
leg heavier than the other.
We've gotten sports science down. It's kind of, like again, it's fitting that all of this chaos is from the team in New Orleans. Like
Yeah,
it has to be. It can't just be normal. It can't be like Patriot sadness where it's like, oh, we're just not very good. It
yeah,
has to be profoundly odd stuff.
yeah. No, it's like, did you guys go out and accidentally do some voodoo or something like that? Like what?
Did you party too hard? Did you have one of those weekends where you went too hard Friday and then you're like, okay, but I'm going dry Saturday. I have to have a day. Oh, God, God, God.
Yeah,
You just keep going, and somehow it's Tuesday, and you're like, you keep pushing the hangover bill down,
yeah,
which is kind of the Saints, like a metaphor for the Saints, because they've been theoretically over the cap for like the last, basically since the Drew Brees era, and
yeah.
they just keep finding ways to push the money down another year. And like, I'm glad they won because it's like this team has too much raw talent and has spent too much money not to at least be above 500.
It's yeah. It's one of those also like it's one of those games that brings life back to the NFC South. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's now three three of the four teams have 3 wins, and we're only on week 5. So
Right,
theoretically, if this pace keeps happening, I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying if this pace keeps happening, they will like they will be a very winning division.
right.
And then the
The I
Panthers.
Yes, and also the Panthers. I suppose the proof, like, I suppose that's their theory for continuing to do this, oh, well, our division is always going to be weird, and it's always going to be like a 9-7 winning it thing.
Yeah.
It's worth it to keep competing when other franchises might start like sort of breaking down the parts and accepting lower draft position.
Yeah, no, it's very it's a weird dynamic that's been established. Alrighty. Joe Burrow showing signs of life.
Yes, the Cincinnati Bengals defeated the Cardinals pretty emphatically with a score of 34-20. Going into half, it was 17-14 because
Yeah.
of course they Cardinals always play two good halves.
Mhm.
And then um, the Cardinals were actually up. And then I saw it
Yeah.
live. Poor Dobbs threw an
Oh,
interception,
he
which was
threw a
returned for a touchdown.
yeah, he threw a very nasty interception. Like it was cool for the Bengals, bad for the Cardinals.
Oh yeah, and yeah, it was a nice, competent game. Like I do think some of the like Joe Burrow's back; he's completely healed. Like you
I
watch it, and it's still like a little slow, but
yeah.
at least he looks vaguely like Joe Burrow again.
Yeah, I was yeah, no. That's why I said why the note specifically says showing signs of life. I do not want to say that Joe Burrow is back at this point because once again, it's the Cardinals, a surprisingly
Right.
doing good like being competitive team, just getting outclassed wherever they play though.
Hmm.
Um and he had Burrow was 36 for 46, which is a pretty good stat. 317 yards and 3 TDs. Like can't really complain. And he also rushed. He only rushed for 7 yards. I almost mixed up his and Joe Mixon's stats, and I was just like, how the hell did Joe Burrow rush for 81 yards? Um,
That would actually be unhinged.
that would be insane.
Uh, yeah, exactly. Like this is the game that, like in a normal plant season, Joe would come in. This would be like his first game of the season,
Yeah,
and he would drop like 50 on them.
yeah. Like
Um,
we talked about last week, where it's like if they rested Joe Burrow for the first couple of weeks, and
mhm.
like they should have, and just taken the losses but healed the Burrow, he would have been. I think it would have been a completely like bigger offensive win.
Oh yeah. Fortunately for them, they get one more, not a gimme game against the Seahawks, but their defense is definitely not their strength.
Yeah.
And before they go against the 49ers. And at that point, you do just hope we're as close to 100% as we can get.
Yeah, no. It's the 49ers, as much as I hate to say it, are showing off like you are hoping by the time you play them in the season, they are not 100%.
I deliberately, I suppose we have to talk about the Cowboys in like low lights,
Oh yeah,
but
they're there now, but
fine. I'll deal with the Brock Purdy talk then.
yeah,
I need time.
but yeah, no. Like I guess this is technically a highlight. 49ers 5-0 and they're pretty dominant.
Yeah,
I don't
I
like
will bite my tongue until we talk about the Cowboys.
yeah. Alrighty. Lions balled hard. Straight up clowned on him.
Yes. I say straight up clowned on them. Like, this is, I know there's a lot of discourse. Like, are we turning on Bryce Young too early? And I'm like, no, I'm not turning on Bryce Young. I'm turning on the Panthers,
Yeah.
which is a problem because you don't trade up for a number one overall pick quarterback and then pick the guy who can't. Okay, I will say one thing about Brock Purdy. There is a lot of discourse around the Cardinals right now that basically Frank Wright is already trying to save his job by blaming the owner effectively by
This
being
is
like,
on
well,
the Cardinals, right, Carter?
Panthers.
Yeah, you said Cardinals.
God dang it! I
you,
am really.
you're off your game today. I mean,
I
so
injured
am
my
I,
foot. I
but
might be in shock. Yeah. So with the Panthers, so their owner David Tepper, like Frank Wright made a somewhat innocuous comment about like, he's really hands on. He likes to get involved, and there's an interview that came out, David Tepper explaining why they traded DJ Moore in that trade. It's like, well, the advantage with Bryce Young is he's like the point guard. He passes it around. He gets the ball there. And I'm like, yeah, that in college that works, but that's not how the NFL works.
no. And
What you really mean, where you really want a point guard is a team like the 49ers, where you have theoretically 5 Pro Bowl wide receivers on the field at any given time,
yeah,
and you just need a guy who can get it there. But anyway, I guess like I said, clowned on them because the Lions seem to take a weird, intense joy. Like they
uh,
were doing trick plays. There
yeah,
was a play
no,
where the ball was snapped to David Montgomery through Jared Goff's legs.
yeah. There was also, in my opinion, like you're getting a little bit clowned on if they just use a straight up flea flicker. No flare, no other tricks. It's just a flea flicker. And
And they did it twice because they did a double reverse flea flicker
yeah,
to
and
the rookie tight end.
and this is one of those times where I feel like Bryce Young should have analyzed more, like Caleb Williams is, because Bryce Young is literally just like he got thrown to the Panthers, and the Panthers are he's got not a lot of weapons and a very weak offensive line. Like they're able to score, but they're not able to win.
Yeah, I don't know. This season has been interesting for quarterback discourse. There is a lot of like nature versus nurture talk where people are really falling on the teams for letting these players down.
Mm-hmm.
And to certain extents, I completely agree with that with Bryce Young. He is getting very hosed here. I would have loved to have seen the timeline when he announced he was coming, or was he a senior? He might not have had a choice.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's nature versus nurture. And I'm like, on one hand, yes, Bryce Young is getting absolutely screwed. But you also see these games and you're like, you know, it feels like there was a finite amount of scenarios where he would have completely succeeded, at least this early.
Yeah. And if you're looking at everybody who needed a quarterback and had early enough picks, because it wasn't. It's clear that Bryce Young was going to get picked very early in the draft this
Mm-hmm.
last year. You're looking at Panthers, Texans, in my opinion, Colts. Also, in my opinion, Cardinals should have been looking for one, and that's roughly 4 of the first 10 picks. Honestly, I think that's 4 of the first 5 picks, and
Mhm.
you could have like everyone else got set up with better situations than he did.
Right.
Anthony Richardson's pretty hooked up. C.J. Stroud's showing himself to be a leader on the field, and then the Cardinals didn't draft one.
Yeah. I it's like truly it just feels like the worst combination of
Mm-hmm.
like, Richardson succeeding because he's in a scheme that rewards him. Stroud is winning because he's got a lot of young sort of guys who want to prove themselves around him and like good vibes. Um, and Bryce Young just gets a big old crock of shit.
Yeah, and he gets that, and he just kind of gets. I don't know what other better way to describe it as than leftovers. Like they get Thielen in who, yeah. They get Miles Sanders, who looked great on the Eagles. But when you look at the Eagles having one of the best offensive lines in the game, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter who your running back is.
Yeah. I actually have an interesting point to make about that later, in terms of like what differentiates the great running backs from the good running backs. But like, yeah, the Panthers aren't in a position to have a good running back. They need a great running back with how
Yeah,
their team is designed.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, Lions did great. What a rep!
yes,
What a good rep for the NFC North.
yeah. I mean, I like we don't have down Green Bay, who if Houston is our sweet summer child, Green Bay is our uh, young winter moondrop. With their growing pains and they're still like figuring out like, all right, who are our keepers here? The Lions are like, it almost feels like they're closer to rivaling the 49ers than the Cowboys after that last game.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I'm I don't I don't want to put them in the same tier as Eagles and 49ers until it actually happens in the playoffs, but
yeah.
it's feeling we're getting close to that.
It's feeling like they're gonna make a great run, and with how their next few weeks, actually, pretty much the rest of their seasons lined up and who they're playing,
Mhm.
they get Bears twice, Vikings twice, Broncos once. Um, like from this point on, Packers once.
Yes, they got some very favorable polls.
They got some pretty good polls. They're setting themselves up for some great success at the rate they're going. Where I don't want to say they're like a lock for the playoffs. However,
Mhm.
with the rest of their schedule and how they've been doing, and against some of the teams like that they have upcoming, they definitely have like an easier than most run to get to the playoffs as compared to say the 49ers or the Eagles where they're both teams are like running a gauntlet.
Agreed. All right, that leads us to our don't sleep on it games for week 5. Do you want to introduce yours?
Sure. Ooh, my voice cracked. I was going back and forth on this. You picked what I was going back and forth with it at as yours, so I'm
Mhm.
pretty happy about that. I actually went Jets versus Denver. Now, let me tell you, if you were looking for some top-notch playing football the entire way through, it was kind of there. It made its presence known. But it's if you're looking for top-notch quarterbacking too, I wouldn't even say that was there. But you got like the Jets defense getting a safety, Greg the Leg kicking some solid field goals. The entire second quarter of that game, all the points scored were exclusively field goals on both sides.
What?
Yeah,
What a slop. That is the embodiment of like, let's slop it up.
yeah. But like
Zach,
if you're also let's not forget the winning play of that game is a opponent is the Denver Broncos fumble it and Bryce Hall runs it back for 6. What is insane, like,
Truly hilarious that
it went
for just a moment
yeah, it went
I was
from
like, classic Zach Wilson. Because Zach Wilson threw an interception. Weirdly enough, it's the same kind of play that happened in the Bills game where he throws it. Garrett Wilson is kind of open, but instead he throws it to the ins or outside, so the cornerback basically just has to like catch it on his chest. And then you're like, oh my god, this is hilarious. The Broncos are going to go win this game,
yep.
and just like plankton getting trampled by the Desidens of Bikini Bottom. Russell Wilson just gets flattened like a pancake as the ball tumbles out of his hands, and Sean Payton cannot hide his fury at what he's
Mm-hmm.
witnessing.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, you're like, it feels like a backyard football game.
Truly,
And
there are no winners here.
yeah, it's not like there's no winners. For also, nobody attempted to go for a first down on fourth down. Fun fact: the entire game. I'm looking at some
They
of the
know what
stats.
kind of teams they have.
Yeah, but it's like it felt like it was Mrs. A's class versus Mrs. B's class after recess. Like, it's gonna get messy. It's gonna be grindy, and that's what you're gonna get.
Yes. What a funny game. I just, and again, it's so funny that like a subsect of the NFL intelligentsia are so mad at Sean Payton for his comments about Nathaniel Hackett when they were objectively right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like like look, I want to like Sean Payton. Like he made New Orleans football good to a point that no one was able to before, and I like think it's good that when New Orleans is a good football team. But like, man, he is really phoning this in. I get it, man. They offered you more money. They offered you generational wealth. You got to take it, but was it really worth it not to wait another year to see if like the Patriots job got open or the Chargers job or any other job?
Well, at the rate they're going, it might be the Patriots' job. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say he might be now. I
I
don't.
we
A
gotta
lot of people.
we gotta
I,
hold a
I don't
little bit
know.
longer on that one.
Right.
All right.
Well, no, I just meant for the Broncos. It's like, could they fire him year one? And I'm like, on one hand, the reason why a lot of coaches don't get fired is because you owners have to pay for coaches out of pocket. That's not like a salary cap
No.
thing.
Yeah.
Um, and they have Walmart money, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. We'll have to
I
see.
think
But
I
yes,
think it's
my
possible to fire year one. However, I don't think it's possible to fire Sean Payton year one.
right, and it's
If
not
that makes
like
sense.
yeah, it's not like the Urban Meyer thing where he was like making enemies in the locker room and doing inappropriate things.
Yeah.
Like the only thing he did was make a scene about Nathaniel Hackett. Um, my don't sleep on game was Houston at Atlanta, a game I normally would have been yuck, ick, no. But of course, it starred our little lemon drops, the
Yeah.
Houston Texans.
Yeah. Our
Um,
unofficial official team.
yes. Once again, CJ Stroud just looked chill, cool, poised.
Yeah.
He ended up having another game without any interceptions, now shattering the records.
Yes.
Um, down 6 going into the end of the fourth quarter, he led a wonderful drive that ended in a touchdown. It looked like our boys had pulled it off again with a 19-18 win. But
Yes.
Desmond Ritter, against all odds, finally showing signs of life as a theoretical NFL quarterback, finally throwing it and making accurate passes to his teammates. Kyle Pitts leading his team in
Yes.
receptions with 7 catches. Drake London having a whole 6. Bijan Robinson continuing to do Bijan Robinson things where they
Yes.
have to do that overhead angle to do like cool tricks and shit.
Yeah. No.
And they pulled it off.
It was. They pulled it off at literally the pretty much the buzzer. I
Right.
don't know how much of this game you actually watched, but
Basically the entire fourth quarter.
I had it on for I had on the majority of it. It was red zone in one tab. No, excuse me, red zone in one tab, and this game in the other tab. Um, and I was just watching I was watching this game while listening to Red Zone because I was raised with my dad playing football on the radio growing up.
Really?
Yeah, he would put it on the TV, but dial into the radio station and listen to the radio station coverage. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so and then any car trip, anything like that. Um, he had a big surround sound speaker set up in the basement where the family computer is, and I'd be playing Zoo Tycoon. So it's one of those I've learned how to listen to football, and I know exactly what's going on um, at like any given point. So that's why I was like able to like listen to all the red zone games and watch this one. And
Huh.
yeah, weird little history about me. Um,
I like it.
and this was actually like a pretty fantastic game to watch. I would have picked this one if it wasn't for for the last fumble recovery touchdown by the Jets. Um, because it was a good showing by both sides.
Yes.
And
Again, it's so devastating that I gave up on Fields and I was fully like put Ritter in a bin, put him in a
yeah,
bin,
yeah,
and both of them had their best games as professional athletes.
yeah. I would say Fields. I still feel is pretty out. Desmond Ritter. I'm not sure how out he is anymore. I will say though, this game did prove my me and Danny's love of field goals win games because it was literally no time on the clock when Young Huiku made the final field goal to win it. And it's literally like one of those moments of just like if they made like a tackle maybe 1 second quicker, or if they were able to pull this off 1 second longer,
Mhm.
this wouldn't have been the case. And I feel like Texans fans shouldn't be mad about this loss.
Yeah, I don't really believe in the whole moral victories thing, but it's like this didn't feel like as much of a loss.
Yeah,
This felt like, oh, this team we're going against has a small armada of like top 10 offensive talent, and the only
yeah.
reason they're not better is because for some reason they refuse to draft
Acknowledge a
or pay
quarterback.
for a quarterback.
Yeah, another team that could have
Honestly,
used a
if
quarterback in
Kirk Cousins is,
the draft.
mhm. I mean, honestly, if Kirk Cousins is going anywhere, it wouldn't surprise me if it was there.
Yeah, no, but it was. I think it was a good showing by both teams. It was kind of like clearly where we're actually competing this year kind of game.
Hmm.
And I mean, a loss is a loss on the Texans. Can't deny that. But it's also like it's one of those. It's like you did good.
Hmm.
Like this is one of those games that this loss would never be included on our lows.
Oh yeah, like we wouldn't have even bothered bringing it up in another, like even last year. It
Yeah,
just would have been a game.
yeah. Speaking of our lows,
All right, let's do this.
all right. One of the winningest coaches, Bill
In it,
Belichick.
here's the thing about that someone pointed out this week. It's like,
It was
okay,
the
so he
nastiest
basically,
loss they had this entire year or his
well,
entire
yes,
career. I apologize.
yes. Um, so he's like 30-ish wins away. And with this team just kind of being like a plotting 5-5 team barring some dramatic change, it's going to take him a while. Like
Yeah.
maybe he goes to the Chargers, maybe he goes to Washington and he can pick it up a little bit. But even then, Andy Reid is only like 40-ish, 50-ish games behind him.
Yeah.
And Bill, he's a lot younger than Bill.
Yes.
And he's shown no signs of like, I'm thinking about hanging it up. Maybe if Andy gets another Super Bowl or two, he'll be like, I've kind of conquered it. But like, Andy's basically locked in to 10 wins, barring some complete collapse.
Yeah.
I don't, even if Bill gets the record, he's not going to have it for that long. So
No.
truly, what is the point of any of this? And
It's yeah.
maybe the Patriots get Caleb Williams, maybe they get a top draft pick, but like, if you're Robert Kraft and you've seen how like things have deteriorated here so quickly, do you want Bill in charge of that?
Yeah. It's like there was a clear decline without Brady on the
Mhm.
Patriots. Like that's just a fact. He's one of those levels of quarterback. But it's like you're clearly watching like the golden child has left. The phenomenal talents that wanted to work with him have also left. And now you're left with all the scraps that like you got like I would say we're at a pretty fresh post Tom Brady draft where it's more people that worked without Brady than worked with Brady
Mhm.
on it where it's like kind of what we talked about at the beginning of this episode where your golden era is gone. Everyone else is either realizing it and retiring or going to other teams. And now you're kind
Or
of left,
evolving.
yeah, or evolving too. And now you're
Yeah,
kind of
because
left
like
in the
Andy's
dark
changed
ages.
his tune.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's because he's trying to build the team like he did in like 2006. And that's just not how the NFL's run anymore. I mean, look, like we talked about nature versus nurture, and Mac Jones is my like counter to like Brock Purdy or Bryce Young, where I'm like, yeah, in the right situation, they both can succeed to various degrees. Like maybe Mac Jones would have been good if Kyle Shanahan did draft him third overall, but
yeah,
like at the same time, I'm like, he has such a limited. You watch this, and it's like, yes, he's gotten screwed. Like, they haven't made an offense around him. They built the exact kind of opposite offense that he ran in Alabama. Like, they're trying to run this, like, methodical, like, tight end heavy, run heavy offense that just isn't working in this
no,
league anymore.
it doesn't
Whereas in
work.
reality, in Alabama,
Yeah,
he was like, Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams, and Jalen Waddle. He was throwing to, like, three, maybe one of the greatest like slot receivers we have in the NFL right now, and two of the fastest guys in the NFL.
yeah,
Like, but also he's like a petulant child with a limited ceiling physically, and also he seems to piss off his teammates. Like, it, it was never going to work, and it's not, especially not going to work here.
and them trying this, like you said, a tight end heavy thought process with an offense. That worked with Tom Brady and Gronk because it was Tom Brady and Gronk.
Right?
Like as much
Yeah.
as I don't like Tom Brady, I have to respect his accolades as a quarterback because it's one of those
Right.
he hasn't done anything so terrible yet to make me like hate him even more and be like this person shouldn't be mentioned ever again. But he's also
Right.
he was good enough that it's just like he's proved himself as one of the best of all time.
Right.
And
In order to make it work, you need an elevator, and you don't have an elevator. You don't even have an escalator.
yeah, and
Um,
nice. And Gronkowski's one. I feel like he was like the modern day trendsetter for tight ends at first. Like he paved the way for people like Mark Andrews and Travis Kelsey, where it's just like we're gonna put this dude that is too big to be a receiver, um, and we're gonna make sure he starts, and he's just gonna be a brick house wherever he goes.
mhm.
And honestly, if I'm thinking about like kind of the goob, like the clear goober of the team being the tight end, Gronkowski's the earliest one that comes to mind in like I would say like the modern era of NFL.
He helped make the position of tight end be cool.
Yeah, and he's looking around and he goes, "Ah, Kittle, you're too goofy to be running back." and too slow to be a receiver. Welcome to tight end. And it's like, Travis Kelsey, you're not as cool as your older brother. Welcome to tight
Yeah.
end.
But yes, yeah, the sign. I don't know how it could possibly get bleaker,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like the only solace it brings me is that I occasionally listen to the Bill Simmons podcast and listening to his. Well, he's not coping. He's not like he's like, oh yeah, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Like I'd argue, like I said, the Raiders were in the worst place, but it's even worse for the Patriots because they feel obligated to be in denial because it's like, oh, you're really gonna fire Bill too and just fully admit it's Jover.
Yeah. If
Um,
if Bill Belichick gets fired, I'm not saying leaves on his own record. I'm saying if he gets fired, this at the end of this season, I would predict that the Patriots don't pull a huge turnaround for at least 5 years.
you just had to like the level of fundamental changes you have to like
Undo.
engage with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's getting awful cold up in New
You
England.
yeah, you might as well relegate yourself to the XFL for a season. Or I guess it's going to be like the spring football league now and
Oh yeah.
let the St. Louis Battlehawks take the place.
Those silly geese thinking there was enough talent outside the NFL to have two separate alt leagues.
Yeah, nope.
They would have been in the NFL, buddy.
Yeah.
Would have been in practice squads. Um, Anthony Richardson, once again got knocked out of the game with a shoulder sprain. He is on the IR, which will
Yes.
mean he is 4 to 8 weeks. Just a bummer because again, it's like again, it wasn't like he was looking bad.
No.
He he reached that Josh Allen, like early Josh Allen, like second year Josh Allen, where you're like, if I look at the box score, I wince a little bit. But then if you watch Red Zone, it's like, okay, he only completed like 6 of 11 passes, but all 6 of those were like the most incredible pass you've ever seen. Like off, like off angles, like across body, like perfect passes. And yes, the running was as advertised. He looked like Derrick Henry out there.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's only completed one NFL game out of the 4 played in. I mean, obviously there's just going to have to be discussion about like and honestly, for me, I think this is kind of the best thing that could happen because like I want him to play for 10 years.
Yes.
And the easiest way to do that is to let him sit. Now that you know, like, okay, he's not a lemon, he's got the work ethic,
Yeah.
he's got the skills, the game isn't too fast for him. Now we can let him sit for the rest of this year while we figure out what exactly we need to do to get everything else around him so he doesn't need to get hit as much.
Yeah. No, I think kind of like you said, this is a low because it just sucks that this is his like
Mm-hmm.
second. I think he's only completed one full game as starting quarter. Like I mean, he's played almost every week as starting quarterback, but he's only completed like one game where they didn't need to bring in Minshew at all. And I'm hoping that with the past of Colts quarterbacks, they just
Mm-hmm.
go because it's he's already made it pretty clear he's getting set up to have a long NFL career,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe not a super long one, but he's going to have like a solid NFL career. He's shown he's got the stuff, and the Colts need to work on what's happened with like Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck,
Right.
and that's what that's what
Yeah. The specter of Andrew Luck's career needs to be hanging over their heads.
yeah. And I'm hoping I'm hoping with this trip to the IR, they hold him like for longer than needed is I guess the best
Mm-hmm.
description. So
Agreed.
so not only he could be playing at 100% capacity and they're not rushing it for him to get back in, but they can really work out what he needs. If he needs a little bit of extra help on a left guard position, Colts should be like, all right, we need a good left guard at the draft.
Mhm.
If he needs, if he needs like a little bit of a faster receiver, all right, let's train up the boys a little bit. Let's try and get them faster. And that's,
Agreed.
I feel like I feel like I feel like he was a right choice to rebuild your team around. They just can't blow it.
Agreed.
Alrighty, Carter. What do you get over? The notes
All right.
say Carter gets over with. Carter gets it
Gets it
over
over
with.
with. All right. So here's the thing. A lot of people in our friend circle, after the Bills beat the Dolphins, were clowning on me for how melodramatic I was after week one. But I was pretty even keel, though I'll admit I do relish particularly beating the Dolphins. Like, because this Jaguars game is kind of proof of concept of everything I was saying about the Bills after week one. And I do love all these people after beating the Dolphins, like, oh, and everyone said the window was closed. Everyone said it's over, it's Jover. And I'm like, I never said that. I said that our window is closed winning a quote like a Super Bowl with this coaching staff, with this culture. And that is exactly what happened with this Jacksonville Jaguars game. So first off, like, look, there's been enough they apparently decided instead of going over to London right after the Dolphins game, they were going to go Friday night, basically have the team gut it out, like stay up for 48 hours and then sleep. The minute Stephon Diggs did an interview where he was like, "Oh yeah, Josh is EP. The missile is very tired. He is EP. He's had a long day of splashing defensive backs and needs a tiny EP." I was like, "Oh, we are fucked." And yeah, that proved out in the game. Everyone looked a little sluggish. The amount of penalties would suggest that everyone was a little EP. If your sports science, here's a pro tip for what listening to your sports scientists. If they tell you something and then you pitch it to your like spouse or like a friend at the grocery store and they say that sounds dumb, then don't do it. Like this is an experiment that failed horrifically. And even with that, like, I don't think the offense played that bad. This is an example of, again, our coaches are just horrific at sort of game script, game scenarios, and like adapting to what the game is giving you. Like, it is so clear from the start of the game that the Jacksonville Jaguars said, okay, the last three teams the Bills have played, they've cut them into ribbons. They've done short passes, they've done inside, like sort of off tackle runs. They've gained like 5, 5, 5, 5, 10, 5, 5, 5 touchdown. We're not going to let that happen. The Jaguars have a very good run defense, and they were swarming the ball. There was no yards after the catch. So what, like, the logical thing is be like, Josh, sling it. Start going 15, start going 20, because those plays were open. We scored 14 points in the last 4 minutes because we just said, screw it, we got to send it. And the best example of like where the coaching does not understand what the team needs is so we managed to force a fumble on Trevor Lawrence and we're driving. We get stuck in no man's land, like can't not a great place to punt, but we can't kick a field goal. They decide to punt it instead of going for it on 4th and 2. And the commentators are like, well, you got to get the field position stuff. And it's like, counterpoint, we just lost our best defensive player to a broken leg, our second best defensive player to a torn pec. This defense roughly looks like those last few boys stuck in the trenches of the Somme during the bitter end of the war. Like, they are not going to be able to slow down the Jaguars right now. You have to take every scoring advantage because by the time we get to the fourth quarter, we couldn't stop them. Like, we were too burned out. You had to go for it. Like, our 3 drives that actually got points, all 3 of them were just Josh Allen doing everything. And that was just kind of the game it is. But unfortunately, our coaches, like, again, they just do not understand what the game needs. They decide on a plan going in, and they don't deviate off that, even when it's not working. The plan you used against the Dolphins was not working, and you did not change it. And that is always going to be our Achilles heel compared to other teams. Like, I don't know if you were going to talk about the Rams-Eagles game, but I am so freaking jealous of, like, the Eagles coaching staff. Like, I am so jealous of Nick Sirianni. Yeah, he's weird.
He's
He
a
has
weird dude.
odd metaphors. He gives rambly, long-ass answers during interviews. actually say anything.
Yeah, and cries during the national anthem a lot.
Like a weird amount, like a little too much. It's a little much, my guy. Like every now and then, he has a demeanor and posture of a man who liberally uses his dispensary card, but he like fundamentally understands what his team needs to get through any situation.
Hmm.
Like, oh, that first season with Jalen Hurts where he couldn't throw it very well, then I guess we're just going to be the best running team of all time. Like,
Boom.
oh, now we have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Time to air it out. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Boom.
Every single game. What?
I just said boom.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I
No,
thought you
you
said
did.
who. Um,
Who?
every single game this year, they have tried something new to get through that game. Like,
Yes.
first week you use Kenny Gainwell and your run game isn't quite snapping. Screw it. We had DeAndre Swift for a reason. Now he's one of the best running backs in the league.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like, the Rams are slinging it around the yard. Let's tighten up in the middle. And also, let's show them we can do that exact same thing. Like, and yeah, it's like that's the kind of stuff we need. We need adaptability. What is the point of getting all these different pieces to finally create a robust offense if you're not willing to like it's basically the reverse problem of what we had before where it was like before it was Josh you had to do everything and now it's like Josh you're not allowed to do anything. And
Yeah.
that's a problem because our entire defense is crippled now. Like the
Oh yeah.
entire
No, they're
spine
both
of our
just.
defense is gone. Like we're actually fucked. The only way we're winning is if we go back to the Josh, you're going to have to score 40 a game. And they're not going to do that because they're also cartoonishly risk averse. And like if this season does not end with a long playoff run, this is going to be the catalyst game where you can look at it and go, everything that was wrong started here.
Yeah.
And
I will say, though, for the Bills, they have the next 2 weeks. They have Giants, Patriots.
I know, but famous last words.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
Also,
those are
can I
gonna.
just say,
If that's gonna see if how much they drop is how they do against those guys.
yes. And can I just say, like, I love everyone clowning on Diggs for, like, slamming a tablet on the side of the field. The Eagles are 5-0, and they've had a fucking argument on the sideline every single game
Oh
between
yeah.
somebody and somebody. And
Yep.
it's like, yes, no, good. I want a level of expectation. I want a level of like if we're not winning, something's wrong. If we're
Yeah.
not crushing teams, something's wrong. I love that level of passion.
Yeah. Here's. I'll go like. I'll go on my Eagles rant a little bit now. Even though I don't believe they are deserve to be in the low category, I also don't believe they really deserve to be in the high category as of right now. But
They got the job done.
I think this was their most competent game yet, because they handled Sam Darnold, one of the best like defensive linemen in the league, if not the best. He didn't get anywhere
Aaron
close.
Donald.
Aaron Donald. Who did I say?
I gotcha. You said Sam,
Oh, I keep.
which is very funny that you got those two mixed up.
Yeah, it's neither of ours day today. Um, but they held him the entire time. He didn't get close. He didn't get to touch Hurts once. Then you have like possibly a hot take. A healthy L.A. Rams is a isn't a team to really just fuck with. And
Right.
like Matt Stafford can throw, and that was where the Eagles' weakness was. It wasn't. It was if they got to him before he threw the ball, which with the defensive line they've built up with like Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis,
Hmm.
like not including the veterans of like Fletcher Cox and Fletcher Cox didn't play, but BG did. Um, it's like they're made to go through as quick as possible, and they've proved it some of the downs. And then once, if Matt Stafford threw it to Puka and Cooper Cup,
I am glad
and
they
now
can
returning,
coexist.
yeah, and now returning Cooper Cup, who they both did excellent together. Can't deny that.
Hmm.
And they're in the defensive backfield, not near Reed Blankenship. It was a crapshoot. It was a crapshoot on how that went for the Eagles. Um, but it's like one of the things that I was talking about earlier this week with the Eagles game is you see Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelly yelling at Sirianni. You see Nick Sirianni yelling at Jalen Hurts. And what is the biggest thing that happens during that whole ordeal? Does the person who gets yelled at yell back? No. Does the person who's getting yelled at run away? No. Do they hear them out and respond to them? Yes. And that's kind of a level of passion on both the player aspect and the coaching aspect. Like Jason Kelsey was threw a huge fit, for lack of a better words, on the sideline after one too many delay of game calls, and everyone's talking about it. He was up in arms, just screaming around. Did Stoutland go, "No, you're wrong. Go take a seat," or say anything about that? No. They heard him out, and I feel like that's one of those great culture things of neither side is too proud to walk away from a confrontation without being at least respectful of it. And
Yes.
if a coach needs to yell at the players just stand there and let them yell at them. And if the players need to yell at a coach, the coaches just stand there and let them yell.
Whereas the Bills have, it's a level of accountability. Whereas the Bills, when someone called out reasonably, like, hey, Kyrie Elam, your former first-round pick cornerback, has been inactive all season. You activate him this game, and he gets burned out of his shoes. Wouldn't it have helped to have him available during multiple blowouts to get some reps?
Yeah,
and Sean
reps.
McDermott just went, nope, he's got to play better. A lack of accountability, which I would expect nothing less from the man who watched his star quarterback score 14 points against the Chiefs in the last 2 minutes and then proceeded to play defense like he forgot the Chiefs had all 3 timeouts.
Oh, yeah. No, it's one of those, when you see players and coaches yelling and flipping out on the sidelines, there is a solid 75% chance it's because they care about what is actively happening. Mm-hmm. There's a 25% chance they're having a diva meltdown, and, we're all glad to see Antonio Brown's doing well. Right?
I don't like that guy.
Oh, no, he's not doing well at all. But, yeah, no, that's the...
Oh, I see. You were doing a little sarcasm there.
Yeah, it was a little sarcasm. All right.
The Ravens blew it, and Carter sweats as his takes look bad. Okay, you know what? Here, no. Here's what I'll say. The amount of drops...
First, I want to clear something up. The Carter sweats as his takes look bad, in parentheses on our notes, was a Carter written note. I didn't call him out on this.
Yes, but then I realized, no, stand by your convictions, damn it. They were multiple drops today that would have been game changers. At least one touchdown was dropped. Another couple huge gains. And even the play that got intercepted, this horrible throw that everyone's talking about, it's like Odell Beckham should have fought for that ball. Yeah. Like younger Odell would have been able to get that. This game is more of just my classic never ever bet on the AFC North. It is, they all actually hate each other. It's always a slop fest. You never know what's going to happen. Any team can win at any given time. And truly, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were just an inept offense the entire game, finally has one play where Kenny Pickett just says, screw it, I'm audibling, and sends it to Pickens, who ends up making an incredible play to win the game. Yep. Meanwhile, their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, simply showing no emotion, but I would also be having trouble with my emotions if I was constantly getting yelled at on social media and someone tried to frame me with a Twitter account. Are you familiar with the story?
No.
There was someone tried to be like, hey, I found Matt Canada's burner account. Look, I can connect it to him. And ultimately, it was proven false. And I'm like, God, is someone trying to frame Matt Canada to get him fired? Are they trying to pull a Brian Colangelo?
What a weird set of circumstances.
That's so tedious and elaborate.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those ones.
But yes, I still think Lamar played well. I need his receivers to step up because, man's slinging it around the yard. Mm-hmm. He's, I really like what I'm seeing from him in terms of evolution. Staying in the pocket, really good dimes. But
Yeah,
like if the receivers don't catch it, then you can't do anything about that.
I will say, like, I guess, like, I'm not known to be his biggest supporter. Um, they, but it's I can I can respect his game from like his abilities from this game,
Hmm.
but yikes, um,
Yeah.
not like he has the ability to look great, but once again, yikes. And here's my biggest problem with the Ravens. They have probably the best kicker in the entire league.
You're just mad that Justin Tucker might not get to go to another Super Bowl.
I am a little bit mad about that. But it's also it's kind of like the opposite of the like you this guy can easily kick 60-yard field goals like it's his job because it is. Um and he just boots it like no tomorrow. But they do not set him up for the ability to just get field goals.
You want them to lean into the slop. You want them to win games 12-9.
If they win 12-9, I'm happy with it cuz that's a win. Like regardless of my stance on field goals and stuff, if you have 12 and the other team has 9, that is a win. And it's sometimes you just got to count your losses. Am I watching fireworks? Nope, it's my cat in a box. But it's like you got to count your losses of the drive and be like, all right, we're not gonna get close. We're gonna throw in the guy that can kick 50, 60-yard field goals like no tomorrow, and you get points on the board. That's it. Sometimes it doesn't matter how you get the points on the board. You still just got to get points on the board.
I mean, you're not wrong, but they spent simply too much money on Lamar Jackson to have that mindset anymore.
Yeah.
This is
And
a fundamentally different team than traditional Ravens teams.
and you know what? And this is why I think Lamar is overpaid and stuff is cuz they want to feed him the ball, but him and the team they built around him can't just get to the end zone.
So you're saying they should give that money to Justin Tucker.
Absolutely. Justin
Is that
Tucker,
the take we're building up to for this entire damn show?
entire damn show, Justin Tucker should be the highest paid player in all of the NFL. Uh,
All right.
step aside any quarterback. All right, let's talk about just notable things. Um,
Yes. So as we head into week 6, our 2 bye weeks are Green Bay, who I think could really use it. They've been slumping a little bit. I think
yeah,
a week off will really help the young team sort of regroup. And Pittsburgh, who can ride contently with some vague sense of momentum and
yeah,
a vague sense of like people not losing their jobs.
yeah. No, jobs are being safer right now. It's a nice week off, and then they come back to the Rams. So I think that's a
Mhm.
solid I think that's a solid team to play right after your bye week, especially if you're
Mhm.
fresh and they're not. Where it's like that makes the game a little bit more even for you guys. I think I think the Rams are one of those pacer teams of, and I guess this isn't intentionally like a dig at them or anything like that, but it's like if you play the Rams after a fresh like a fresh week or like a bye week or even like an early game, you've got to you have possibly the high ground on the situation because the Rams at
Mhm.
home is not a real thing.
It is so funny. It's just so funny that the NFL owners have been using the threat of moving their team to Los Angeles for years to force small cities to overpay for stadiums,
Yeah,
and they finally do it, and there's no audience.
no, it's
It's so funny.
it's hilarious. But it's like in Philly, you have Philly. The Eagles have a home field advantage because they're swearing, They're throwing snowballs at Santa Claus, and who knows? You walk too far in the wrong direction wearing the wrong jersey, you might just die. In
Yeah,
Arrowhead,
that's gonna be my fate.
yeah, we should watch that game together though. In
Oh yeah.
in Arrowhead, it is loud, it is booming, and like you have like quality team, so that is going to put you at a disadvantage.
Hmm.
Those cheeseheads are they're kind of nuts fans, especially if the Packers are on a win streak.
Oh God, yeah.
But then you go to
That's why losing Green Bay is such an outrage.
yeah, then you go to the Rams, and it's just like, oh yeah, LA's filled with people from all over the world, and it's like, oh, vacation destination. Let's also see our favorite football team play. Why not? And that's where I feel like the Steelers could have a thriving chance.
Oh yeah.
And
Um,
yeah, Green
uh,
Bay just needs to regroup early. They're losing their momentum. If they pause now, I feel like they can turn around the way they're going with two what looks like to be easy games to help them regain it.
Agreed. Um, personally, oh, sorry, not personally, but well, I guess this is a personal note for me. The Jags back-to-back wins in England. Bills fans, hear my calls. Um, so we complained enough about the overtime rules to get them changed. We complained enough about when they were having us play home games in Toronto to end that experiment. We
Yeah,
complained enough about playing in Miami in the summer, like the first month of the year, that we'll never have to do that again. If we all come together, we can end this English experiment. If we bitch hard enough, they will stop sending games to England. Like, look, and they were candid. They were like, it's an experiment to see how a team would, if it would give a team a competitive advantage, because they want to put a division in Europe. And this was an emphatic example of like how that simply would not work well. So I say we come together as Buffalonians and take a stand against this nonsense.
I'm
I don't want to play on soccer fields.
yeah,
Who's with me?
yeah. I was just I wasn't trying to trigger anything, but you gotta admit that's kind of a notable note, getting back to back wins in England, like in
It's an
2 weeks in
outrage.
a row. Anyway,
An outrage.
um, New York Giants, one of the bottom tier teams of the league, 102-yard pick six.
Yes, it was. I saw that live. What a delightful highlight. It really was. It was the damnedest thing. Of they for just a minute you think, oh, are they gonna get a surprise win? Like, is this gonna rally them? Are they gonna get a surprise? Nope, they still get crushed.
Yeah, they still
Um,
get crushed, but it's one of those like IV moments for Giants fans, in my opinion. Tua,
hmm,
who's been having a great season so far, is throws an interception and you run it back the entire length of the field. Hold on, I want to give this guy Jason Pinnock. I want to give him his credit,
thank you.
um, because that's like that changed the game. It was 13-14 or 3-14 before it happened, and that changed the game to 10-14. And that is one of those, like, as Carter knows from being a Bills fan over the years, and I know from being an Eagles fan over the years, it's not always like rainbows and daisies and stuff.
You gotta take your moments. You gotta take
And
your celebrate the moments where Stevie Johnson wears a "Why So Serious" shirt,
yeah,
or Fred Jackson comes out of nowhere to get a bunch of rushing yards. You gotta, or when Mario Williams gets like 2 10-sack years.
yeah,
The little highlights like that, they get
it's
you somewhere.
like you will not talk. You're not talking about the Giants' record. You're not talking about Daniel Jones in any sort of positive way. But like after plays like that, every Giant fan is like, if I was a Giants fan, I would be just talking about Jason Pinnock the entire week
Hmm.
because that's a that is a first off 102-yard interception. That is literally the field, and then some. You're in the end zone too. What just insanity?
I will say also, while we're talking about the Giants are the apex example of what I want to talk about with running backs. In terms of like especially watching the Bills like futile attempts at running against the Jaguars. The difference between like all this discourse about elite versus replaceable running backs, the great running backs like Barkley or Bijan, like so many teams try to running plays out of shotgun, and it just doesn't work for like the Najee Harrises or like the just adequate running backs of the league because it's like, oh, so you're handing this guy the ball in his stomach without a running start, and the entire defense is breathing down his neck. The great running backs have that explosiveness to like slip that first tackle behind the line of scrimmage and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But the 99% of running backs can't do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, this is a note I made. Everyone wants a trade, but trades ain't happening. I don't know. There's so much talk about trade rumors. There's so much talk about like, oh, well, now that Justin Jefferson's out,
Kirk.
the Vikings are gonna dump all their, stock, all their assets,
Yeah,
um,
Kirk's
the,
done. Kirk's getting traded.
all the defense, some of the guard, like a bunch of the sort of middling offensive players.
They're
Um,
He's
the
out.
same thing with
They're
the
gonna tank.
Broncos,
Yeah.
and it's like, guys, this isn't. I know we want the NFL to be more like the NBA, but it's just like these teams are all 100 years old. They just don't do things that way.
Nope.
One, because the salaries are more complicated. Two, because like, um, they're all like, again, teams don't tank. Sometimes, like I've been trying to use different language for that because it's like we can say a team's tanking, but in reality is a team goes into the season like a owner might tip the scales and remove the talent before the season starts.
Yeah.
Nobody like gives up during the season. That's just there's too much at stake. There's too much money.
Yeah.
Like
You know who never
there's
gave
no
up?
incentive.
Lovey. Lovey never gave up.
Exactly. Like there's just so little incentive for doing that, especially because it's like when has a team like tank for Tua when the Dolphins did it? They ended up getting like the fifth pick, which they ended up getting Tua anyway. But or the famous Jets, like, oh man, we're gonna get Trevor Lawrence. It's all gonna turn around, and having that explode in their face because they won a game. Like
Yep.
it never works. There's no incentive for trading young. It's not like the NBA where you can just sit on like a decade of draft picks or like pick up a like D'Angelo Russell as like a well, his contract expires next year, so it's basically like money. It's basically like a money laundering scheme where like we dump salary cap. Like no, that's just not how this league works. Like there's no universe where Patrick Surtain is getting traded this week, guys. Is basically my thing because I brought this topic up because the Bills fans have been high on the copium about like oh we'll be able to trade for this guy or this guy, and it's like guys like I think we're heading for a much more boring trade deadline than people were hoping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
That was just a rant.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's gonna be any crazy trades as of right now. Anyway.
Like for a lot of teams, it they figure it's whatever if a guy leaves for nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's not like the NBA where it's like, well, there's like 15 superstars that matter, and if you let them walk and don't trade them, you're fucked.
And that I mean I feel like that's true for the NFL. Like but here's the thing: there's so many like very well-rounded teams, and
Hmm.
they might not be good teams, but they're well-rounded. And I think it was last week or the week before, or sometime recently. Justin Jefferson's gonna go. I'm thinking about going here or like where I should go on vacation, and vacation's gonna be on quotes
Hmm.
if the Vikings continue the rate they're going. And if any team in needs a remotely decent receiver, which I can I can say that's probably a solid 75% of teams, they can use someone of Justin Jefferson's caliber easily.
Hmm.
Like you have like you have some of more your like standoutish teams like the Dolphins, best wide receiving duo in my opinion, of the
Hmm.
entire like in the entire league. You got you got 49ers. They have great receivers. I'm trying my best not to mention the Eagles because I feel like that's an easy example for me to give, and I want to try and spread out like
Hmm.
who's got great receiving combos. Bengals, they have great receivers. Not doing amazing this year, but they have great receivers. Um, so it's just like the Broncos, the Texans, the like hell, even like the Cowboys and Seahawks, where it's just like, man, I should go somewhere on vacation. It's like money on the table, on the spot. Actually, if money's on the table, it might not be the like Giants or Cowboys. They've both spent a lot of money recently. Um,
Not well.
I'm not saying they spent it well. I'm just saying not a lot of they spent a lot of money.
Eh.
All right, let's get to turf
Um,
talk.
yes. So another week, another discourse about the turf versus grass. It really is incredible how like how it's every week this discourse now.
Yeah.
Particularly Travis Kelsey just stepping and buckling. There was that highlight of
Oh,
Jalen Hurts' leg being side or foot being sideways,
yeah,
and again, it's a testament to that man being built like a tank that he didn't get hurt. And it is just, I don't know. It's just never underestimate the NFL. Just make the worst choice for everyone because the money's coming in no matter what.
yeah. It's I think it's one of those things where you look at European football. It's all played on grass without fail. And they're playing at some of the biggest arenas in Europe with like Wembley and stuff. And they keep that grass alive and it's like, oh, actually for a good example is last month I believe, there was a huge wrestling event at Wembley. They're
Hmm.
not wrestling on grass fields. No, they're laying down whatever system they have to keep their grass safe for concerts. And that might be what just if it's one of those ideas where American business is wrong. And they
Yeah,
can
it's like I almost don't know why I brought up this topic just because it's like, what can we say that hasn't already said?
yeah,
For me, it's just like a testament to one, just terminal capitalism, where like the marginal amount you're profiting off of using turf as opposed to um, grass isn't worth it when it's like, well, we could make more money if the product was. It's my same thing about like every sports league should cut a quarter of the season out because the games will be better and more people watch the games if they're better.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, again, and it's like I expect nothing less from the league that after the NBA did all of that stuff, their COVID season, like in the bubble, like all this meticulous planning to make sure it could get done without anyone getting sick, or at least like minimizing the risk. The
yeah,
NFL's like, nope, nope, we're just going. Oh, the Broncos don't, all their quarterbacks got infected. Well, you better figure something out because you're playing Tuesday. Yes, we're having games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays now. So sorry.
yeah. No, COVID season's gonna be its own conversation. Uh,
Yeah, someday I'll go on a whole rant about that.
but it's one of those things that it feels like we're ahead of the times, astroturf and stuff,
Hmm.
and we're creating all these fancy types of turf for them to play on. When in actuality, the right answer is just the grass.
I don't even.
It's proven how well it can work. Like how well
Right.
you can maintain it and how well you can keep it fresh and painted. It's proven.
And also, I'm just down. Like, a part of me also is like, where was the union? Like, I don't know. Like, I understand running a union is very difficult, but like, Pouncy Brothers, how did you not fight for this? Like,
Yeah.
how is this not like a non-negotiable thing? Again, I guess that's also like my frustration with like the players' union, like caving on a lot of things. Like, mainly they caved. They didn't want a 17th game, and they caved on that. And they could have like their strike would have been happening during COVID anyway, so they could have gotten away with a
Yeah.
strike.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, but
Honestly,
yeah, this has got to be non-negotiable next,
yeah.
like union labor talks.
Yeah. All right. Question of the week. Not related to
Mhm.
anything. Actually, kind of related to something else we've talked about. It's the reason that we talked about next week's spies in the notes section and not for the next week hype because we talked a little extensively about it. So when would you prefer a bye week?
Easy. Around like the 10, 9, like anywhere from like 10 to 13, I believe. Like, I prefer it kind of later in the year as an opportunity to breathe. Like, I don't like the middle of the year because then if you get stuck, like the Bills had their bye too early last year and
Mm-hmm.
things started to go wrong and they just didn't have a moment to regroup. I like having a sort of late season, sort of fall-y break, wintry break
Yeah.
to just take a breath and figure out exactly what you need to get through the playoffs.
So bye weeks this year are weeks 5 through 14.
Yes.
I I kind of agree with you, but also like I straight up agree with you. If you have the week 5 bye, I feel like that's the worst bye week.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like being out first and then you have to play every single week straight. It's gonna be a little rough. And I would also be doubtful of week 6. I feel like it's beneficial for the two teams this year with the Packers and
Mhm.
Steelers like we talked about. However, if it was
Yeah,
like
they need to regroup early.
yeah, they need to early regroup to maintain a strong rest of the season. But if it was like the Dolphins or the Bills or someone like that caliber that had the week 6 bye week, I would be like that's kind of a waste. I think
Mhm.
I think the perfect time is weeks 9 through 11 because actually there's also no week 12 buys. Fun fact.
Huh. That's weird.
A little weird interesting thing. Cuz is that Thanksgiving week? Is that why? Um but like weeks 9 through 11, I feel like it's a solid amount of time to get a rest and you can um like you can take a solid break then. Oh yeah, there is no bye weeks on Thanksgiving week. Fun fact. Um,
Hmm.
but it's it's a solid break. It's a good point to just catch your breath and regroup for the ending season. And I feel like if you have that like week 13 or 14 slot, that's gonna be a bad week because you're you're gonna be in December at that point, and you're not gonna start with as much momentum going into that last final push to the playoffs, and I feel like that could secretly be detrimental.
Right.
Like if ever, if like week 13 and 14 this year is the first weekend of December and the first second weekends of December, and then you're gonna have the big like you're gonna push two more game or three more games and be like and it's like some of them are holiday games so that's going to be like fortunately it's like Sundays and Christmas Eve is Sunday Monday this year so it's not like too screwy with how games are lining up, but it's like it's going to be big holiday games, and I feel like you want to be hot going into it. You want to have
Hmm.
that momentum, and those could also be just huge make it or break it weeks for your playoff contenders that aren't guaranteed to be in. Like
Hmm.
I'm sure we'll have some established like people by that point of like, oh yeah, this person's guaranteed in. They might not get the first slot, but they're not getting out knocked out of the playoffs. And I feel like that'll be clear at that point. But it's like, so who has the last bye weeks? The Cardinals and the Commanders. Oh, great. um,
Not a great case study for you there.
yeah, not a great. Here we go. Week 13. Actually, it's the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Um, and other people that it's not going to matter that much for. Um, I feel like at the rate the Ravens are going, they need to be hot. They need to be catching that like fire and going
Mhm.
with it into December. And as much as it is to be like all healed up, nice and healed up for it, you're going to be slowed down. You can spend every single day practicing and working out during your bye week, but you're not going to have that week to week in game action. That momentum's cut.
Right, right.
But yeah, that's my thought on late buys. And early
I like
buys
it.
are dumb. All
Yes,
right,
hard agree.
let's get into next week to round this episode out. I switched up the
All
order
right.
a little bit just because I feel like ending on the sour note of the don't bother game was like kind of a little bit of a downer. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is the inaugural season of this show, so we're rounding it out. We're doing some edits on the fly.
Right. My waste of space game, Commanders Falcons. I was tempted to put Vikings Bears, especially with Justin Jefferson out, but I kind of want to see if Fields and DJ can keep the momentum up. Whereas the Commanders, like I watching them against the Bears was difficult. They just do not seem to know. They just seem eternally cursed to actually have a lot of good skill players and never get
Mm-hmm.
them the ball, which is weirdly the same problem the Falcons have had, other than this last week.
Yeah.
So it is two Ferraris that never leave the garage going head to head on at 1 p.m.
Yep.
A prime go to the apple orchard kind of game if you're one of the fans of one of those teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's time to take the kids to the pumpkin patch that week. Um,
Enjoy the splendor of mid northeast fall.
I I also considered the Vikings Bears for this, but I didn't pick them because I feel like Vikings Bears is clearly like they're both 1-4. So it might be just like it might be like the Broncos Jets last week where it might just be oh this is gonna be a slobber knocker. So I put Chiefs Broncos. Um,
Chiefs,
it's
Broncos.
technically on tonight,
Oh,
um,
right, right.
as time of release, and it is
I need Travis Kelsey to play.
yeah it's looking like he's going to as of right now, but it's going to be one of those games where the Broncos don't like Broncos country is not riding this year, and the Chiefs. There's a lot of accusations about the Chiefs and the refereeing this year.
Oh my
I'll just
goodness.
leave it at that. So it's
We're pretending regular season refereeing is ever good. Come on,
yeah,
people. The problem is refereeing as a whole.
but yeah, Broncos haven't had an amazing offense, haven't had an amazing defense. It's gonna be pointless. Like their closest games were against Washington, and their only win is against the Bears, and they barely lost to the Raiders. That's not saying much. The Chiefs, while they might not have the like the same caliber as last year as of right now, they're still good.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be fun. Alrighty. And the don't sleep on game. So I feel like mine is a pretty solid choice.
Mhm.
I picked Lions
Hit me.
Buccaneers.
Oh, I was thinking that one.
I feel like it could be like I feel like it has the premise to be a don't sleep on game. Buccaneers are coming off of a bye. Lions are hot, and these teams they have the 4 o'clock time slot. They're not like either of these teams on their own. I feel like when they established the schedule for the season, weren't of the quality of being given the Sunday night or Monday night games.
Mhm.
So it's like I feel like it's two very competitive teams this season, and they have a solid amount of justification to be that don't sleep on team.
Yes. Yeah, I like it because it is like the super hype team going into the season, the Lions. That was like the this is their year team versus the Buccaneers, who even we were clowning on in our uh, sort of joke comedy point league.
Yep,
We had the ability to force someone to start Baker Mayfield,
yep,
but it's working out for them. I also like it because it's like strength versus strength. It's the Lions' cavalcade of offensive weapons. Versus the Buccaneers' robust defense, which is still surprisingly stocked with people from the Super Bowl.
yeah,
Um, Very fun pick.
yeah. It's
Um,
it, it's gonna be the one that is just on my laptop as the Eagles play.
I like it. Um, all right. My pick, I was torn between two. I kind of want to do 49ers Browns, but I don't like being nice about Browns.
It
If there was ever a point when, following how the season's gone, of like gets hyped and then pantsed, the Browns defense will, Miles Garrett will put Brock Purdy in a sleeping bag and throw him around like that bit from Friday the 13th.
mm-hmm.
But instead, I'm going with Dolphins Panthers
Ooh,
because coming off a game where we described them as, quote, just straight getting clowned on, I am very curious to see what the Dolphins come up with for this game,
mm-hmm.
especially since they got Chase Claypool, who
Yes, they did.
went from sparky upstart wide receiver on Pittsburgh to pariah on two different teams.
Yep.
Straight up got traded because he said something in an interview. Uh, I I want to know what he's going to end up doing because this might be his last chance.
Yeah, this is his last chance, and he's definitely not in that one or two spot. I feel like this
Mhm.
is also an interesting choice because based off of how both teams' seasons are going, do you, do you think the Dolphins might break the scoring record this game?
If they weren't going to do it against the Broncos, I have to assume they'll turn they'll slow down sooner.
Here,
Like getting to 70 was a point against Sean Payton.
yeah. Here's the thing, though.
There's no vendettas against the Panthers.
Here's the thing, though. I'm. What if they're just like, we could have done it. We should have just powered through and finished them, and beaten the record, and then a couple weeks later, a little bit of a, like rough game against the Bills for them, and then
Hmm.
who did they play last week?
Giants.
Giants. Yeah, a little bit of a throwaway game against the Giants where didn't they didn't look super like they looked good, but they weren't amazingly there because they got a little sloppy due to Jason Pinnock, of course. Um, I feel like this is when they're sitting around in their war room, like right now as we speak, and they just go, "What if we break the record? What if we just put ourselves back on top?
Yeah,
Watch."
what if what if we like get the word out that we're back at it?
Yeah, because they're definitely one of the front runners for the AFC right now,
Hmm.
and I feel like that could just be like one of those just let's establish some dominance. Let's
I,
put
c-
let's put people in their
I
place.
your concept is sound. I'll believe it when I see it, though.
Alrighty. And before I send it to the outro, or send it to you for the outro, quick little thing. Check out Caspod Conspiracy coming out tomorrow, Friday the
Ooh.
13th. Callum and Tom sit down and talk about some of the cryptids that were talked about in the D&D campaign. Should
Awesome.
should be a good one. Also, fun fact for you, it's also the first Caspod main channel content that doesn't include me. Look at that.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I've been in every other video. This is the first one without me.
Wow.
No, I lied.
We're truly a new era
I
of
lied. The
cow.
first episode of Carter Explains Football, when you're explaining it to Callum, is the first one without me. I got my
Dang.
own made up stats and all. Alright, whatever. Not as special. Send us home, Callum. Or Carter. God damn it.
Oh man. Well, apparently very EP from telling y'all football. Thank y'all for listening this week. We're excited to have another week of football in the books as we roll on through mid-October and enjoy spooky season with some spooky sports. Thank you and have a great night.